facts in front of us that we can share with the board and have the board stand in discussion about that. So we're not at that point yet.
And Scott, I understand that. It's just that I know how this 15% works. I've been around too long. I just want to make sure that that this board has their eye on that, because that has become a point of contention in times past with patrons who've passed these bond issues, and they say that the general public thinks if we say we're going to pass a bond for, let's just say, for example, for technology, for whatever the price is, they don't understand that 15% of that can be used for something else. So I just want to make sure that we're clear, we're above board, and that we do what we're supposed to do.
I have a question. Gary, step up to the microphone. Gary and I are law school classmates. What you said is inconsistent with what Jay just said to my ears. Your example was, well, let's don't take examples. Let's take this bond issue. We have a certain amount designated for gyms and classrooms, and this $60,000 issue is part of that. So let's talk about 60, although it would apply to the whole amount for gyms and classrooms. Now, you said that we can't spend $1 for anything else except those purposes. But then earlier I understood that, and I think there is a possibility, since these are, I don't like the word cookie cutter gyms, but I mean, we're dropping these gyms in here to a lot of different locations, and the design is pretty much the same, and it ought to be a fairly inexpensive operation to build those gyms. So let's assume we have 20,000 of the 60,000 after we build out the gyms and classrooms that are designated. Now, what can we do with them?
All right, if we put $60,000 in for a gym at a school in our list of projects originally, we are required to spend that $60,000 on that gym if it takes $60,000 to build that gym. And there's a hole in the law as to what happens if you have a $70,000 gym. What do you do? If it's only a $20,000 gym, what do you do with the $40,000? The law is not as clear as it could be on that. We've had it a long time. But it hasn't been clarified.
So how much discretion have we when we come in under 60,000?
What it says, you have to spend 85% of that on that project. If that project is completed for 70%, you have 30% of leeway.
And then can we do anything we wish?
You can do anything within the limit. We had
what limit?
We had 3 propositions. The first was for facilities. The limit is that if you have some extra dollars for that gym, it has to be used for facilities, because that's what it started out for. It can't be used for buses or technology.
Okay.
Technology had a separate proposition, and buses had a separate proposition. Once you've done all the bus bonds, that's all you can have for buses until you have another election on buses. They have to be separated from facilities under school law.
Okay, so hypothetically, if we say we're going to spend $60,000 on a south side gymnasium and it comes in at 20, we could take that $40,000 and spend it anywhere in the district we choose. Is that accurate? Hypothetically. Right. I understand that. But it may not go to, it can go wherever we decide. So I want to make sure, because I've seen this happen, I understand the experience of this, that when there's that excess money, I want to know where it goes. I want to know how equitably it's spent.
Yeah, you're ideally situated to know.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen where it's gone in the past, Mr. Horney.
Well, and again,
I've not been happy with it.
When I look at equity, and I know that we're talking about, this particular pot of money versus the district, again, that those that did not get that equal part, that I would definitely push to say that we need to, because it was a promise. It was a promise to even the constituents that stood there. And we said that we were going to do what we were supposed to do from the initial. So anyway, again, that is something that I definitely would like to see in our board to say we were going to uphold what we said from here that we would do.
I think that what you're hearing is that we just want to keep track of how that money is being spent and use it for facilities wherever we need it.
Well, and Madam Chairman, it's very important when we go to run a bond issue, we have to get every quadrant of the city to vote for this, not just one part. And so, if we're going to be inequitable, if we're going to take that 15%, which I have seen done in the past, and spent unequitably, we're going to have a hard time getting the east side, the south side, to vote for these bond issues. And what we want to do is spend every dollar that we can in a way that tells our voters that we can manage money.
Well, and I think this board that's sitting right now, I can't speak to the past, but this board is certainly looking at I-89 as one district. So I think that's what we're trying to do. Thank you very much. Thank you for your help.
Jay, I certainly applaud your desire to have transparency and fairness. As a new board member, I'm kind of confused, though, because in the past, when these things come up, if you're a member of the board, didn't you have a chance to look through the numbers and say, this isn't right? I mean, was there time to raise
Well,
it?
I didn't as a board member, but I certainly did as an employee, and I can tell you it's been inequitable, it's been wrong. And it's one of the reasons why we haven't been able to run bonds. Because that, 15% of a $60 million bond is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And we can fuss and argue about technicalities, but technicality is this board only has to spend 85% of that on those particular projects. That leaves 15% discretionary spending within that time frame, or within that parameter.
But doesn't that 15% come before our eyes at some time?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So to your point, Bob, Jay, you had, as a board member, we do have the right to see that and vote on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
But,
all right.
I'm one vote, so, I'm not casting dispersion or distrust among other board members. I'm just saying, I've seen what has happened with that in the past that has caused hard feelings among schools and caused us not to be able to run bonds. I just want to make sure we do it right.
Can't change the past, but we can fix the future.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
while
sure.
I'm kind of, from what the attorney said, there's not an extra built-in 15%. But what you're saying, there is an extra built-in.
No, there is not.
There might be, but there's
It's
not
only if
built-in.
It's not built in. It's only if you're under that amount.
That's,
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make, Justin, is that happens.
I understand.
That happens. And when it does, what we do with it matters.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept?
We have a motion and a second already.
Oh, I'm sorry. So any further discussion? We'll call for the vote.
Thank you, Scott.
Having received 8 aye votes, 0 nay votes, motion carries as made.
Thank you. Okay.
We actually have 2 votes, I'm sorry to interrupt, we actually have 2 votes that need to take place here.
You just authorized the sale of the bonds to the low bidder, which was Bank of America Merrill Lynch. You now have a motion to approve the issuance of the bonds and the second vote.
Okay. So now we need to vote, have a motion that we will issue the bonds.
So moved.
Okay. And second by Ruth. Call for the vote.
Having
Thank you.
received 8 aye votes, 0 nay votes, motion carries as made.
Board Chair, may I offer just one response to some of the discussion? As we will through the superintendent give a thorough accounting of the $60 million and any other Yes for Kids bonds that have been sold, so that it's well communicated as far as what we budgeted for the project, what's in the resolution, and what funds have been spent respectively. So
Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Okay, 6.02. This is a rescinding a previous action of September 16, 2003, and I'm going to let Dave comment on this.
This is the action that was taken a couple of months ago. As you may recall, at the time, the recommendation that we made to you and that you approved was to utilize some of the unspent or contingency funds in Maps for Kids. Then subsequent to that, we had the Maps for Kids Trust, where it went next. This on how the projects were selected and whether it was appropriate yet to start spending money because we're not all the way down the path to completing all the mass projects where they feel that the contingency is really a contingency. So from that discussion, we had the joint meeting with the Master Kids Trust and the City Council and this board. The consensus was that we could probably take care of two items with other funds. The new driveway for Lee Elementary, that could be managed through the city, doing some of the engineering work that's necessary for that. That we could work with our partners at the county to do some of the manual work, and that the school district will only pay for materials. So we didn't need the money from Master Kids for that. The other item that can be, doesn't have to have Master Kids money, is the expectation that the clinic at Emerson will be able to be paid for by TIF funds. And I think those are funds that we'll try to secure early in the new calendar year. That left three other projects that the Master Kids Trust had asked that we hold in the bands until we know how far the money's being stretched with the current projects that haven't been bid yet. So this rescinds the previous action to ask for 5 items that would have been drawing on the Master Kids Trust, but likely would have not found favor as it went up the line. Sure.
We're holding the 3 in abeyance that you didn't address.
Right.
Simply because we're not sure how much help we're going to get on the other 2?
No, it's...
Well, why are we holding them in abeyance?
Because the Master Kids Trust is not certain that those contingency funds are really available, because we haven't had all the bids on all the Master Kids projects yet. So they think that it's premature for us to start allocating money that may not be there at the end. So that was their rationale they expressed at the joint meeting we had.
But when you call them contingent, it's understood that they may or may not materialize. I'm having a little trouble understanding their reasoning.
I think their reasoning was a couple of areas. One was, again, the notion that they may not be contingency, and yet you're approving them as if though the projects are going forward. I think that was one concern. The other concern that they had was what rationale that the board used so that they could understand it too from the standpoint of equity and other issues as they considered. Because we passed on those recommendations to say, here are the 5.
Now that last part was interesting. They want to understand the reasoning for the decision we made, but isn't the decision solely ours?
No, even though those are bond monies, it still requires it go into the Master Kids Trust for concurrence. Because that's where this got held up.
Well, then why did we ever do it in the first place if it was a collaborative thing instead of our decision to make?
I say that was a poor management decision, so I'll take responsibility on that. Yes, I was here. I was here 2 weeks at the time.
So fiduciarily, what does this cost us? What are we rescinding here? How much?
It doesn't cost us anything. This is saying we're not going to expend funds. So in fact, I think I would say that it's going to save us money from not having to utilize Master Kids money for either Lee and the driveway there or for the clinic that Variety Care is going to operate at Emerson.
How are those going to be paid for?
As I mentioned, the one for the Lee Elementary driveway, the city is funding the design costs, the engineering design costs for that.
And the construction?
And the construction will come through the county with us paying for materials only.
Okay. And the other?
The other one is through TIF dollars, which we haven't asked for yet, but I feel confident we'll be able to get those.
You anticipate that when we beg for our TIF money, that it's ours, we'll get it? I
feel pretty good about it. I was at a TIF review meeting last week, and in fact was very impressed by how eager those members of the public are for us to come forward, because other taxing entities have requested funds. This district has not as of yet.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
I'm real pumped. I'm with you.
That's very ironic in my experience. Glad to hear it.
I got a question or / comment. I remember the meeting, and like what Ron always says, if I agree with Jay, then that would mean we were both wrong. But Jay made a good point and I think it was at that joint meeting saying that and I'm new at this as well, that the MAPS Trust Committee, which is now saying no, correct?
They were trying to be more graceful in that.
Well, isn't that exactly what Jay said at the joint meeting, saying they're the ones that hold us hostage for the funds that we have given for them to rule, and then as Phil just said, that now they're not granting what we had voted to them to grant? And it kind of seems like a cluster joke.
Well, my sense of the history, and others can probably correct me on this, is that when the district went forward with the bond issue, the idea was that there was greater confidence with the management from the city of those dollars, and so hence the approval didn't rest just with this board, but that it would be managed through the city and the Master Kids Trust.
Yeah, and I agree with some of that, but
I think that was the history.
But when it gets to the point where we tell the Max Trust, and I'll just use the same example I need. We have 1,600 kids at Grant, and we have an auditorium for 500. And we told them the projected numbers of Grant at the time would be 1,800. And they said no. So when we look back, and there was, I think, and we don't turn this into an adversarial situation. It should never be. But the argument was that we're not taking care of facilities, therefore they're not going to do this. And my point was, we've asked and asked and asked with competent administrators at the site for what we need, and been denied and denied and denied. And I didn't want to go through a litany that day because that was more of a day where we celebrate meeting together. But I can give you more than that example if you would like. And so I think Justin's point's well taken. They're being nice, but they're telling us no. And maybe that's something we should go along with, I understand. But, guys, we have given the city, I'm just going to say it again because I said it in that meeting, they've given us $1.50 for $750 million. We're going to give 2 times that much back on these tips if we're not careful. Don't have a math background, but that's not a good deal. That's not a good deal. You look at the tips downtown, you look at that I-40 corridor and those blighted communities, you can go online and look at blighted communities, you can look at tax enterprise-free zones. Look at those 5-year tips that are even across the state. They hurt us. They hurt our children. You're not going to read about that in the paper because they're not going to print it. But it's the truth. And every opportunity that we get to get our tip money, we should take it, in my opinion.
Well, and I think that's happening. And let me just, from what I'm hearing, they have stopped us from doing this contingency, and correct me if I'm wrong, but and I don't mean stopped us, but just said, please clarify. And I think it gets back to the very point you were making earlier, Jay, so that we do know that there's transparency and equity in that money that we have left to spend. That's what I'm hearing.
And I think that's all this board is really in.
One of the things that I have even heard from one of the trustees is that we have not completed everything that we asked for, that the part that money was for, and until they really address that central office. That was one of the things that was thrown out to me, that, that they will not be able to move forward until it is the completion of everything that was a part of that Maps for Kids bond issue. So I know that that's something that they're looking at as well. So,
well, and spending these bonds is part of all of that. I mean, these are the things that we have to do to make that happen. So, yes.
Well, I think we have a responsibility when we have these discussions to really be specific about them. Just take this discussion we just had. It began with trying to understand why we were rescinding, what we decided to do with funds if they did materialize. And then it kind of morphed into tips and whether we were getting our share and so forth. And then it morphed further into, well, when they do a project, they don't complete it. I mean, subjects. So and we ought to put them on the agenda and ferret out the detail. This discussion we just had, it's kind of troubling to me. Toward that end, I would make this request. Would our council give each board member a copy of the governing language that tells us that we don't have the final say, that it's a collaborative thing with the MAPS Trust Board? I mean, let us see the language. And what they said is not all that unreasonable. They're saying we're trying to understand if they get a vote, it's not unreasonable. We're trying to understand your
should have pointed out these are sales tax funds, so this is the city's sales tax money, it's not our bond money. So that's why it requires a concurrence by that vote of both this board, the Master Kids Trust, and ultimately the city council. And anything other than 3L doesn't move. That again, I'll defer to our council.
Well, is it possible that there will be some projects that are strictly bond and some will be strictly sales, and
They are
then they have the...
They're kept separate, and the governance is different for those two.
So you can help us understand that a little bit.
How about the first thing I do is go ahead and get the language
Yeah.
and get it to you.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it now.
Yeah, I'm not ready for the dissertation at this
Yeah,
point,
right.
but I can get you that language.
Well, the only point I'm trying to make, we're using these examples, Counselor, just like we do in court when we're trying to make a case. And all I'm doing is trying to make points that the city's not perfect. The city's not better than this board. They're not our boss. We're not their boss. Hopefully, we're working in colleagues with them. And that this joint venture is a joint venture. One is not subordinate or superior to the other body. And I frankly resent the fact that there is an attitude that this board can't handle its business. This board can handle its business. We're very confident. We have good board members on this board.
I think you're talking about something entirely different than the governance of these bonds, but and thank you, Brandon, for getting that. Laura?
I do want to understand the TIP funding, the timeline on that, the process, if it's going to slow down the completion of the projects at Emerson, or if it's just all in the same.
I wouldn't anticipate it will, but as far as the timing, they don't have regularly scheduled meetings, but call them as the need arises when you have projects. So the anticipation is, I think, it would present that in the first quarter of next year. So I don't think, given all the work, Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, that it would prolong the process any from what we'd have gone through the traditional route of the master kit approval. Terry, am I somewhat close on that?
That's correct.
Why are we talking about TIF money only for Emerson? Or are we? We have...
Now, thank you, Ron. The TIF money would be our first draw, would be for Emerson. The TIF establishment has had TIF dollars available to this district. In fact, not allocated, but expected within their budget and available. This district, unlike the county, the library, and other taxing authorities, does not avail themselves of those TIF
We have
dollars.
not asked for it.
We've not asked for it.
We need to ask for it.
We will be asking those. We'll be asking some first quarter of next year. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion on 602?
What's the motion?
The motion is to rescind the action.
I move that we rescind the previous action as discussed.
Second.
We still have a little discussion? What happens if we say no?
You say no.
No, I mean, if this board says no, we don't rescind. If in this, with us against MAPS, what is that?
We are not against MAPS. This is the city, and they have the ability to have a vote where those dollars go. They have the same authority that we do. So this is just about everybody being on the same page. They had a question about what we were wanting to spend this on. We found out we could spend less money and do it differently, and so now we're going to rescind that vote, and going forward, we will have another vote when we're ready to spend that money. Call for the vote.
Having received 8 aye votes and 0 nay votes, motion carries as made.
Okay, that takes us on to the update on capital projects. Terry Wolf.
Good evening. Hopefully each of you received in your packet as an attachment to this agenda item or full report. I thought based on the discussion I would limit my comments to 3 particular items that have been of interest to the board tonight and in our last meeting. Tonight we have agenda item 10.05. That is one where we're asking your approval to amend the architect's contract on the Emerson project. That will pay the architect to add the design of the clinic into their scope of work and for the extra services needed to split that project into the current one, which is the new construction, and then the coming project, which will be the renovation. We also have item 10.07 tonight. That's an amendment to the architect's contract on the GYMS project group 7. There's 2 key changes taking place there. We're recommending for your approval that the Edwards project be moved up from its original grouping into this group because we're interested in getting the drainage problems there solved as quickly as we can. There's a drainage way, neighborhood drainage way, on the west side of that site that continues to give us problems, and that will assist us in resolving those for the long term. And it also adds the fees so that the architect not only will be designing the gyms for those 6 sites, but designing a second option, a bid alternate, if you will, so that those 6 gyms are also bid as safe rooms. That will give us the information that Mr. Randall referenced earlier in the discussion tonight that is missing, and how we can hopefully be able to afford and expand our safe room projects into the coming gym projects. The last item of note, it's also listed tonight in our information items for maps, but we had previously listed that we might be taking action tonight on final acceptance of 5 projects. We did, at the board's request, pose some additional questions on those projects, and they have been delayed at least until the next meeting, January 6th, possibly beyond that, but until we are sure that the school's list, the architect's list, and everything has been completed satisfactorily. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
What numbers were those, Terry, the last?
Well, the list of projects for final acceptance to be considered in January is actually agenda item 7.02. They're just informational tonight.
The question I've got is on the safe rooms and gymnasiums. Why do you have to do 2 bids per school couldn't we do 1 bid of each to figure out if we're there with the money and not waste money on doing 2 architectural designs? Does that make sense?
Well, I will try to see if I can make sense back in my response. Of course, the original architect's contract was just to design the gymnasiums without the consideration of safe rooms. When we consider making those gyms as safe rooms, even though the floor plan itself might lay out the same, everything from the foundation, the structure, even mechanical and electrical, is going to be different. So the architect and his consultants will basically be coming out with 2 designs, call it, if you will, the standard design and the safe room design for each gym. Because this is a package, if we were to take just one site and go through this process, then all of the others would be delayed accordingly.
Okay.
This will simply speed it through for this group of 6.
Terry, I think that really 8.01 through 13 have already been on the information agenda, and we've already been through the questions on those. Those are ready for a vote tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you've got on 7.02, you've got the maps information for the next meeting. So do you want to give us that?
Well, this is simply a list that the MAPS office has provided us for tonight's purposes, advising us that that's what they hope they will have ready for action on January 6th.
Okay.
That's simply in the planning stages at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? So on 8.01, this is the approve the consent agenda, and it actually covers 8 through 13. And all of these, all but the MAPS items were included on the information agenda on the November 18th meeting, and so we've been through the discussion on that. So do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Is this everything through 13?
8 through 13.
I'd like to pull a couple.
Okay.
11.01 and 11.02.
11.01 and 11.02. Is this for a discussion or separate vote?
Separate vote.
Okay, so we'll vote on 8 through 11, pulling 11.01 and 11.02. So is there a motion to approve with those two exceptions?
I so move.
Second. Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Having received 8 aye votes, 0 nay votes, motion carries as made.
And so Jay, I'm sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was a good mistake.
Yeah. 11.01 with McGraw and Hill for professional development.
Is that Cindy? Cindy, do you want to come up and we'll...
Ms. Schmidt, when are these funds going to be spent? Is this for this year?
Yes, it is, sure.
It's for 2013. So they've already, these people have already come and done this.
I'm sorry, it's for this school year. They wouldn't
13,
have-
14.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and this is another professional development company. I mean, another one that we've already been through before.
This is they're textbook companies. They're going to be working with us on our math adoption, which is everyday math, and our reading series, which is treasures.
And tests?
Excuse me?
Don't they do the tests?
Which tests are you?
Tests for our schools that our kids take. I mean, this, McGraw and Hill, they're not even going to be part of the curriculum for next year, correct?
These are our textbook series, so we will be using them next year for math and reading. So I adopted.
Did we use McGraw and Hill last year for testing purposes in our elementary and high school? And this year?
I remember the state contracted with.
Yes.
I believe that the contract was perhaps with them with the state, but I would have to verify that.
Well, it's kind of discerning to me that we're going to spend another almost $500,000 to a company for the next 6 months that is not even going to be doing the same thing next year in 2014.
What the request is for training on our everyday math textbook series that we're using and for our math instruction. And we will be using that again. We also have been using Treasures Reading, and we will be using it for, I believe, 2 more years with that adoption cycle.
So if we approve this, it's a 3-year cycle?
It's, actually, the reading textbooks, we would continue to be using. The Everyday Math is a series that we started using last year,
So I feel like I would be safe to say yes, that we would continue to use that going forward.
And is there an outcomes performance on this at the end of this when every year are we given a performance of how this helped these schools?
Well, I would think on our state criterion reference test in the reading and the math, we would get our benchmark score, which would give us some indication of whether or not we're showing improvement.
And do we have a benchmark score? We've already approved this for last year. Is there a benchmark for the year that they've been involved?
That would be with our report card grades, the benchmark score with that. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Did you say?
Henry, can you help me out with this? We did some of the professional development last year as well.
And this would be a continuation. I think I mentioned last time, we have a lot of new teachers, and as we add new teachers, this is an opportunity to help them with using the series and becoming better versed with all the supplemental materials within the adoption.
I'm going to state this, and this kind of goes, Phil, I want to make sure that you understand this. I'm for anything that's helping our teachers and our children out. But for you to come and bring another almost $500,000 for us to vote for on what has gotten us an F so far, I mean, at some point in time, this board has to understand and realize that what we have done in the past has not worked successfully. And it's the same thing that keeps government in front of us, and this is another example of that.
Out of curiosity, why didn't it include that Quail Creek?
Quail Creek is not a Title I school, and schools have elected to use this with their Title I funding.
Are there other things that schools can use, other companies that we haven't used before that we can maybe gain some success with by spending these monies with another company doing, this can't be the only company doing this. And we spent $10 million with Pearson. We spent X amount of dollars with McGraw-Hill that it's going to be obsolete after next year, testing-wise. When are we going to look at something that says, you know what, let's clean the slate and say an F is not good enough, let's make adjustments and try something else? Is there anything else out there?
There are other things. We have a textbook adoption cycle, and these are the Treasures is the adopted textbook at this point in time. There are cycles that we go through. The state has particular years and dates. I can get that information for you.
This is professional development.
Right.
$324 is not about textbooks or anything else. It's about professional development.
It is.
You bet. Jump in here. Okay, what this is it's embedded professional development. Some of those schools will have 2 to 3 days on each everyday math and Treasures PD on how to teach it. Not only do they show how to teach it, they show them the resources to use that's available with us. If you've ever seen, and I'm sure you all have to, you've been to the schools, when we adopt theories, teachers are given, and I'm not exaggerating, a packet full of stuff. You get it usually 2 weeks if you're lucky before school starts. So I'm sitting here with a brand new adoption 2 weeks before school, and I'm having manipulatives for math. I have worksheets. I have overhead projector, smartboard activities, and different things like that. I don't have time to really teach that. Learn it, really teach it. So what these representatives do, they come into the schools and they show you this is a great tool for the smartboard to engage those students. Let me show you how to do it. So they'll take the teachers and show them how to use a smartboard with the curriculum that we have and pull out some outside stuff as well. So really it's beneficial for the teachers. They said they've loved it. They've never seen better professional development. That's why we chose again to do this. And it's in their buildings, it's on contract time.
My concern is the implementation. I hear what you're saying, but when I have across the board talked to principals, talked to teachers and all, and some of the programs that you all are talking about here, is that they don't necessarily understand, you know, and when you run into a snag to where the, like you said, it's big stack of stuff that they don't understand it sits off over there. And then just as Justin has mentioned here that we are still getting the bad grades. So I'm concerned as well to the part of talking about facilitators, talking about people that, you know, if we're going to go with these types of programs, that we have a person, a professional on this staff to where that when you have teachers to run to those snags, that we have someone that's readily available. I don't know if this company will come back out if you have that snag, but I think it's something that's needed on a regular basis. It's not going to be, you're talking about 6 months that, you know, one time out of 6 months that they say, oh, well, I need a little bit of extra help. So, you know, I think the implementation for our programs has been, from the things that I'm hearing and from the results that I see, that we're not doing a really good job with the implementation, and this is not corned beef that we're throwing here. So,
we do have people on staff who goes out and helps the new teachers and teachers who have asked for help. I have one on staff. She's Title II. She goes out. We have over 300 new teachers probably that have called to help. I have one person to go do that. Dr. House has 2 people that goes out and tries to work with the teachers as much as possible, but they are also in charge of AP, decathlon, reading proficiency, A. So in between, we do go out and we try to meet the needs of the teachers, but when you're looking at 300 teachers and maybe 3 or 4 trainers to go out and help them, that's why we have to hire outside experts in the field that we have purchased the curriculum for. We would love to be able to go out and train our own people and do that, but we don't have the.
I hear what you're saying, but apparently we still are not doing that, and so we're still not. Apparently the teachers are not equipped even with the professional development. When you said that they come in, how often do they come in and to meet with these teachers?
It depends on the staff members here. Well,
No.
You mean?
No, I'm speaking of McGraw-Hill.
It's one day.
There's a couple of, depending on their designation, those that are at risk or priority focused or targeted, they receive additional days. If they're high performing like Wilson and they see that they are implementing the curriculum with fidelity, they'll get 1 or 2 days.
And again, that we only have 1 or 2 days for the professionals to come out and to do the professional development, and our district does not have the manpower to go out and to get that extra help. Really, what are we doing?
$27 schools get 1 day. That's almost a third. 1 day is not very much. I'd almost rather see you take the $324,000 and that $40,000 a person, whatever, go out and hire some people full time. I'm also troubled when I hear that the teachers think this is a great program, but I don't see great results. I don't see great results. I see a report card that's nothing to be proud of. So whatever we're doing in the past, as Justin pointed out, it's not working.
May I ask, what is the cycle when you say the state?
Those are textbook adoptions. That's where we,
and so what is the cycle? Is it a 1-year cycle? Is it a 3-year cycle?
7 or 8 right now with the budget.
7 or 8 years in a cycle?
5 and 6.
So if we get curriculum that isn't working, we're locked into it for 5 or 6 years?
I guess when you say adopting a textbook series, so we have Treasure, so it's adopted for 6 years. That is just a guide for how we are to teach. It is not set in stone that we have to go page by page, line by line to teach them. That's why we bring in and have the other differentiated type instruction, the smart boards, the response systems. We try to engage the students in every type of means. This is just a guide to go to for curriculum. We use the blueprints. We use the state standards. We use EduSoft as the mini assessments weekly to see where we are. So when you say that's our curriculum, it's really not, it's a resource for us to use.
This is for professional development.
Correct. This is
Has
not for any
nothing to do with
textbook.
anything else that we just talked about, right?
It is in that it's going out to show us how to use resources and use some good strategies using math, or everyday math and treasures as our.
For like the textbooks that we already have out there. We're not buying textbooks. with
We're
this.
not buying
This
textbooks.
is professional development to back whatever it is that they want to back.
The textbook.
That's,
But it's a
that's
lot
on
of
a
resources
five to
within
6 year term that we will no longer test with next year.
Now, those are two separate entities. It's kind of like Pearson has a philo for textbooks, and you have a philo for something else testing. McGraw-Hill's the same thing. They're kind of as big as Pearson right now. They have a testing company somewhere that has nothing to do with their curriculum because they bought these textbook series from another company at some point in time under the umbrella of McGraw-Hill. So the two are not connected.
At all.
No, other than they're owned by the same umbrella.
Is that professional development under Common Core?
It is a Common Core textbook, yes.
So next year, 2014, 2015, Common Core is the new testing, correct?
Well, Common Core is just the standard.
Is the standard that we're,
Correct.
so and we've been doing this now, we adopted Common Core, what, 2 years ago?
Two.
So next year, we should be on fire. Just,
Well,
our
the
report
state
card ought to be
hasn't come-
off the chart since we got a head start. We've been using this product and we've been using their professional development.
Well, and of course, the state has backed down a little on Common Core too, so not sure what that testing will look like next year.
But we haven't backed down, right?
No, but then we don't have to we're at the mercy of the state to give the test that they give us to test with too. So, I mean, now we're pursuing Common Core standards.
That's what the everyday math program is focused on. Everyday math is related directly to the Oklahoma Academic Standards, Common Core state standards. The McGraw-Hill Company at the beginning of the school year did provide initial training for teachers, but teachers have indicated that they need additional training, especially in the everyday math program. The everyday math program was new this year. It's a brand new adoption. And teachers have indicated they needed further training in order for them to be more effective in providing that instruction to the students in the classroom.
And Dr. House, as the Director of Curriculum, was this math program something that you chose to put in?
Yes, and one of the reasons, the primary reason for the everyday math program was because it was aligned with the Oklahoma Academic Standards, Common Core state standards. That was the primary reason. And this is the type of direction that we are moving toward in the future. It does take time for a new program to be developed in the school district. It takes time for the teachers to become adjusted, for the students to be adjusted, and for them to get on track and do what needs to be done so we can see academic achievement.
But you know, our children, that really bothers me when you said it takes time. When we're looking at our scores, when we're looking at our grades, our children do not have time. I've been hearing it takes time, and we continue to see our schools fail. That really disturbed me. So, you know, what kind of time frame would you put on it?
Well, it takes time in order to make certain that we can improve the.
What kind of timeline would you put on it?
Well, I agree with you. It should be immediate. It should be immediate. When we started the everyday math program, we knew that teachers would not immediately adjust to this program because it's brand new. And teachers need additional training. It's a good program. It is related to
success will be vertical, when success will be great. But one concern is clear. Teachers are asking for additional assistance related directly toward the publication, toward the everyday math program. We do know that. They are asking for that. The principals are asking for that too.
This may not be the answer, though, what they're asking for.
Well, as they indicated, everyday math and treasures are resources. They are resources. They are basal. They are basal publications used for instruction in our schools. But teachers use many different types
The
of
instruction is,
resources.
for 27 schools, it's 1 day. And for all the other schools, it's 2 days, according to what's on here. That doesn't seem like a lot of instruction.
We talked about that, I think, last time, and I agree, it would be wonderful to have a lot more. But I do think, like Terry was saying, when you do get a new series, especially like with the everyday math, you get a lot of pieces. And to have some time a day even of explanation how to use some of the different pieces, I think is a step in the right direction of getting help. And then hopefully as funding is available, perhaps we can add and have more time. That also, job embedded professional development, giving teachers a day, letting them go back and practice and try some of the things, use some of the manipulatives and some of the materials with a series, then perhaps if we could schedule another time as funding does become available, then we could take that step further.
I might ask a question just for my own sake, since I'm still learning a lot of this with the questions the board's asking. Is the funding that's requested here for the professional development something that could be allocated instead to staff to do the same sort of instruction? People on our payroll, funded by
Funding,
with funding from Title I, just as this is.
we can take a look at it to see. It's really hard to sustain personnel in Title I when it fluctuates somewhat. And then when part of the funding out of here, it's all Title I, but because we have priority focus and targeted schools, I have to set aside 15% for those schools. And so that 15% must be spent on those designated schools.
But could we allocate someone's time, for example, on staff, to say 50% of their time must be allocated to those priority schools, or target schools, whatever the term is?
As long as we're still held to designate that money for them, yeah.
So it could be not unlike an attorney might keep their hours, or we could allocate the time to meet the standards for those 15%. So we could find a way to staff this rather than...
It would be difficult, but like you said, if you said 15%, if you're looking at one person, 15% of that person's time that you spent at the school, you're looking at not very many days a week, if one. So even if you're going to do that time and effort teach on this person.
Which one of our staffs is operating at 85% of capacity right now? Who are you going to stick on to this project?
No, I'm saying that you use those, to the point of the discussion was, is that $300,000 something you could put toward, for example, Department of Commerce. We have federal monies, we hire people each year to say, this is funded by a federal project. It may not be renewed. Do you want to continue in this position? But my question was, can you do that with this money? It'd be additional people, not somebody that would...
Okay.
I just want to get the clarity that we could use this to hire our staff and train our folks to do the same.
And that's what I was, just what you're saying here, and even if it's not giving someone 50%, but hiring in personnel that understand under grant, because if you're on a federal grant, you know that, hey, it's going to end at this particular time, and if you accept it or whatever, I think more bang for the buck. If you were to get, 6 people with this salary or whatever, and then that they can dedicate the time by rotating throughout our district to make sure that we're getting what we're paying someone to come out once.
I just want to make sure, Terry, that I'm understanding that correctly.
Hey, I'm not sure you can do that with Title I funds, can you?
We can hire people as long as they're hired specifically for that purpose.
are we not experts in our field?
We do have a lot of people that go out and do training, the director of Title II or coordinator of Title II. She goes out as much as possible. She's one person, and she also takes care of the new teachers in private schools. I know Dr. House is two people. They go out quite often and conduct training. I had two compliance officers go out to Greystone Upper last Wednesday, and they did a 3 to 6 reading strategies with Dr. House. And they went out and did that, and the compliance officers in my department under Title I, they go out and they do offer training as well. And of course, we don't pay them to go out and do the training even after hours. So we do utilize them as much as possible. But again, there are only a few of those in 78 schools. So it's kind of tough to do that on a regular basis and still take care of the things that need to be accomplished at the district level, or to go out and provide technical assistance to the site in their respective fields.
Here's my point, that I think, and I love the direction that we're going because we're just kind of thinking outside of the box. If you take some of these funds or all of these funds, and this is only one portion of the big scope of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 10 million, it's not the 350,000, which makes the 10 million portion. But if we think outside of the box and utilize the people that we have in-house and maybe gain some more in-house, then we maybe have some more people that act as consultants to our schools, to where instead of we going in there and training and professional development, and then, like Dr. House said, then they need more. Well, when you need more, two things would have happened. Either they're kicking butt from what they just learned at the beginning of the year, or they didn't get it. And so they need more. Those are the two reasons why you need more. So I love what we're doing right here is thinking outside the box, and we have an opportunity to do that and make a difference, but not go down the same path of and receive another F. To me, it's unacceptable.
We did have personnel that you were talking about, they were called instructional facilitators. At one point, we had 17 or something like that they were in the schools that were deemed school improvement, more like year 2, year 3, more of your priority list, I would say now, equivalent to. We had them in there. They were paid through Title II funds. They were paid on a different salary schedule, $6,000 above and beyond their teaching salary. Some of them were great, some of them were not. It was working. They were looking at the data and everything at that particular school, and then we used them to go out to, back then, feeder patterns, and they would hold some trainings during the afternoon. One of the problems was funding, because, of course, their salaries increase, and when their salaries increase, you get less and less Title II carryover, and you decrease your Title II, so it got to the point where we couldn't afford to continue with that program, really, and then we had to take a look at that program for the use of it.
Time out. I just have to ask a question here for my own understanding. Are you saying because the school got better, we lost funding?
No.
Okay. All right. So explain that last portion where
the salaries of those 21 or 17 facilitators, every year they would increase in salary.
Why?
Well, they'd get salary step. They were a teacher. They were a certified
Well, what if
person.
we hired outside consultants
Like
and
we're
not
talking
teachers?
about right now?
Yeah. And they weren't teachers, and they weren't in this automatic up, and we could fund it.
Well, that's
Just
what we're
under the federal grant money.
And that's what we're doing tonight. That's what we're asking for you to.
But you're talking about one person from out of town that is
Well,
paid.
no, actually, there's a kind of a SWAT team that comes in.
But it's for one day. I think that's where we're having the problem. It's for one day per school for the 2 days actually, one for math and then one for the other program. So all we're trying to say is if we're spending, this has got to be 11 schools if you divide that out. It's a considerable amount per day. So you're saying a whole group of people come in for one day?
Mm-hmm. Well,
so how many people come in for one day?
Training is provided at the beginning of the school year.
I know, but this isn't that's not what we're talking about, Dr. Howe.
Startup activities and training. When individuals training is to make certain that teachers are following the curriculum, following the program properly.
But Dr. House, how many people come in that, for this amount of money, are we getting a person coming into these schools? Are we getting 6 people that come in for the day?
I think they're looking at the size of the school as well.
Well, so what have they done in the past?
Last year, there were a couple schools that had 3 or 4 people in there during the day.
So it was that the high end 3 or 4?
Probably, I would say that was.
Okay,
the
so
high
from
end.
1 to 3 or 4. Okay, all right.
Well, and another thing is if you say that you get this at the beginning of the school year. Okay, some get it, some may not. Some need extra help because you said you have staff to go out to get that extra help. They don't get that extra help. Now they're going to come in the next semester when you have lost, everything builds with students. Everything builds upon each day builds upon the next and the next and the next. Now, how do you go back and to get that time from that teacher that perhaps did not quite get it in order to implement? Now you're going to bring in someone to do what? How do they fast track for the half of the semester, half of the year that they've lost?
And hopefully this training will help those teachers.
Okay, I hear you. I'm saying that they've already apparently have lost that first semester. So, okay, I'm done.
Well, this is kind of the siren song of professional development. It's blue sky promises. We all hope that these people in one magic day will turn around a system that's, when you look at the state A through F report card, has a very dismal track record. It troubles me as to why would we continue to do things we've done in the past when we go out and face a public that's very hostile and angry when they see what's in the front page of the Oklahoma. So I think collectively, I can say we are we're grasping for some way to improve a system that's not working. And we need to sort of figure out why it's not working, disregard and then disengage from things that don't work and find solutions that do. So, we ask for metrics to make us feel good that this money's well spent. We can't provide them very often, so that's troubling. It's just a very difficult situation to find oneself wanting to do what you can to encourage professional development, but you see a company, and we've seen dozens of companies, it seems like, that promise they're going to do great things, but somehow it doesn't go from the teacher down to the student, from the student to the test. And it's a mystery to me, why not? Because if these people are so great, why does it show up in results?
As I understand it, these textbooks have already been adopted. We paid for them, we contracted their hours. This is the training that goes with the textbooks. They've already received some training from this company in connection with textbooks. This is additional training that is pertinent to the use of these texts. Now, it's aimed at 55 schools, the priority schools, the focus schools, and the targeted schools. These schools were identified by the A through F evaluation system that we're so troubled by. And this is, and we identify them to help them. This is the help. Now, as an alternative to this help, we're sitting here talking about something we have no expertise in, with the possible exception of 2 on the board who are educational professionals. These 3 people standing here are educational professionals. They're recommending this. And so if you turn down the people, the staff who works for you when they give you the best recommendation they can, then it seems to me you have a responsibility to come back and say, that idea is not as good as this one, and this is why this one is better. I'm not hearing that at all. The only thing that's been suggested as an alternative is that we might hire additional staff with this one-time money, and they'll do the training, although they're not connected to the textbooks. Their training's not targeted in that way. We have failed to staff our schools. We don't have a certified teacher in every classroom. Yet, we're holding on to the thought that we might hire, how many more, 16, 25, I don't know how many it takes to provide the training for 55 schools, but it'd take quite a few. You want to hire these people, you know, and tell them, no, we can't guarantee you you'll have a job 6 months from now. But come on, workforce in. I suggest that if you want to deny this kind of help to the people who need it, the people we have a responsibility to give the help to, you've got to come in with better alternatives and better arguments than the simplistic argument that what we're doing is not working, so why are we doing it? You know? It's like a kid who's not getting enough food and you deny him the food allowance totally. I'm telling you, I can't get on board with it. Now, I will say this, though. We all want the same thing. But it's not easy, it's not simple, and we need to listen to experts. And by the way, the experts need to explain it to us better so we have more confidence in it, you know.
Bill, there's nobody...
As you can tell, to me, this discussion is really troubling. We now are the principals at Star Spencer when it comes to what professional development they get. And now we're going to take over 55 more schools and micromanage them. And tell them what's best for them. And we don't know what's best for them.
When I've heard principals and teachers in the schools mention about programs that have been mandated to them, for them to teach in the classrooms, and that they are not able to do because they're not getting the proper instructions in order to do so, and we get the results that we're getting, well then, you know, for us as a board, what are we? Are we just sitting here as people sitting around a horseshoe without seeing any results as well? My constituents want to know why is it that in District 5 that we have all these tests that we have. This is not a fun tonight slipping across this town from Midwest City here on ice to get here. If it's just to the point of listening to the same kinds of things and getting the same type of results that we have been getting, well then what is the purpose of a board?
Bill, I started to say a while ago, there's really nobody on the board I respect more than you. But
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I respect you on this board more than anybody else, your opinions. You're a very learned man. I'm troubled, though, when you sort of chastise those of us who are not happy with repeating the same mistakes from the past. And if you can assure me that 1 year from now, there's going to be a dramatic improvement, I'll go along with your line of thinking. But you can't do that.
Nobody can do that.
Well, we can ask
but
these people...
I suggest you should be able to do that if you deny them this help. They haven't received this training
very
before.
clear.
These are new textbooks.
Justin asked him if there were other alternatives out there, and the answer was yes. So my mandate and challenge is go find those people.
How long is it going to take you to gear it up? And how long will they go without any help at all until you do?
Well, it won't
Well,
agree
you're gonna
until
miss
take the
one
first
day.
step.
That's all you're missing is 1 day.
55 schools.
1 day,
Right.
1 to 2
Okay.
days. I think we can find something in there for 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, we'll find something. Maybe somebody.
Phil, otherwise,
Maybe
we'll have the same discussion next year. The same discussion next year. Let's record and have them play back, and we'll see ourselves in trouble. We'll have the same discussion next year.
You don't have a crystal ball. You don't know that.
Sure I do. It's called the past. You take a look at the past, it's always a great predictor of the future.
Too simplistic for me. Sorry.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I move its approval.
Do we have a second? This is on 11.01, the $324,000 on McGraw-Hill. Call for the vote.
Having received 3 aye votes and 5 nay votes, the motion has failed.
And now 11.02.
Mike, his comment that we have the same administrators that we've had that have been bringing this to us for the same number of years, that some of us have been on the board that have received asks,
it's time to change. Thank you.
11:02.
Madam Chair, same thing. Same thing we discussed. I just don't understand what this one is. It doesn't say that it's professional development.
Cindy?
This is accelerated reader. We visited a little bit about this at the last meeting. This is the particular program that I mentioned Belle Isle is using, doing really well, getting great results. They had 100%, I believe, proficient in 8th grade, and I believe 97 in 6th and 7th in reading. What this does is really quantifies and gives incentives for reading practice. And these other schools have asked to have the AR. It's a software program. The kids read books. The books are leveled. The kids get points. They get prizes for reading. The secondary, some of the middle schools use this to go along with their 25-book campaign to encourage reading among the students. And this is what this particular item is requesting.
Accelerated Reader is an excellent program. I've used it. I know districts who have used it. It's a top to bottom program.
And there's some outcomes, Jay?
There is some outcomes.
Yeah, okay.
Their kids are tested afterwards to make sure that they have read the book on their points. It's good for reading and comprehension. It's normally based on grade level, used properly by the teacher, used properly by administrators. It's an excellent program.
So is there a motion on 11:02?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Call for the vote.
Having received 8 aye votes, 0 nay votes, motion carries as named.
Moving on to 14:01, new business. There is no new business, and we have a proposed new policy from Brandon Carey on safe room.
Did I propose this policy? This is
the first reading.
Yes, this is actually the first reading on a safe room policy. And Dave, am I correct that the original draft that you wrote?
Yes.
Okay, so you might want to go ahead and kind of explain what you wrote, and then just real quickly, let me state that it states first reading on our agenda. Now, our board policy actually states that the board will approve a 30-day comment period. This is on the information agenda, a 30-day period for consideration. This is on the information agenda, so we can't take any action this time. But it's very likely that at our next meeting in January, we will then ask the board to approve the 30-day consideration, which will also be the second reading probably. And then it will be up for a recommendation for adoption at the meeting the meeting following that 30 days.
Does this have to be read audibly, Councilman?
No.
And what I tried to do is, as we discussed before, when the safe rooms were discussed, particularly with public comment regarding Nichols Hills Elementary, was to bring back to you all a document that could be an umbrella policy in a sense for what you want to do in the future. It sets forth some criteria that will give you flexibility, obviously based on budget and other factors. But it also, I guess I've made an assignment for my successor when you select the permanent superintendent, and suggesting that there should be an annual update that's provided to the board and the public at one of these meetings that talks about the inventory of safe rooms that are available, and then what's also available as far as external resources for future funding, and as technology changes to see what options there may be there. So it stays constantly updated to the board and the public as to the direction that the school district is going. And we'll know with more certainty as we get the Nichols Hills bids. They'll be the first ones that we'll get bids on, but also the others that are following those, to know what the cost would be, and then we can start to give you more specifics as each opportunity comes before the board. But I'm not aware of other boards that have an overall policy, but given the timeliness for consideration, I thought that it would be one that we bring forward for your all's consideration and editing as we go forward. Tries to make a point on equity as well too. So it's not just trying to do it for one location
And I do like the idea of if it's coming up and the finances, I'm very much aware of, financing this project and making sure that it comes before our board and in our faces on an annual basis. Because, even when the issue did come up about nickel pills in that school, again, there has been a lot of feedback in the community as far as making sure that we do the same at all schools in the district. So, when we have said that and this is what's being anticipated, I would say that this is something that we really need to, some heard it as a promise, but I think that we need to continue and not just have it as a policy that sits, on a table and never looked at until there's an incident that happens. So, if this policy is adopted, I would like to see that this is taken very serious to where that we're looking at it and we are truly, trying to make this happen and not just have it as a document to say we did something.
Well, and I think it's important that we continually know that Nichols Hills is a special situation because that was privately funded. So we have to understand that our district, that we've got to be fiscally responsible for these. We want to do this, but we've also got to be fiscally responsible on how we do that. That's my opinion.
I totally understand the fact that was privately funded. I know that we are going after lots of private funds for lots of other different things within our district. So if we can go after if that particular group chose to do private funds, I think that it is the responsibility of our board, of our staff, to make sure that we go after private funds in order to make sure that of the things that really matter, and that is the safety of our children. I'm very much aware of that, like I said, that even when you came before us and even with the vote and all of that, to have that this was because of the fact that we said that we were going to do it for all of the schools. So, to say, well, because this was a private, and you let a tornado, another one of those big tornadoes come in our city, and that, the safe room is there in Nichols Hills, but then go right next to there and hit another school. Explain that to the parents that, well, it was private funds. They really don't care. They know that that was Oklahoma City Public Schools. And so it is my concern still that what we say that we're going to do and that all efforts are being put forward to make sure that the equality for everything, we want equality in education, we want equality in safety. We want a parent to be able to know that they can sit and as comfortable to feel that my children are in a safe place when they're away from me.
Any other comments? Brandon?
Real quickly, I just want to turn your attention, just in the interest of transparency, give you a little bit of notice. Third sentence, the board will request specific designs to secure cost estimates for inclusion of safe rooms in all new construction in schools. Dave and I spoke about this a little earlier. We're going to be a little bit more specific on the next reading than just new construction, because we want to make sure that that's known as such as major new construction. If there's a renovated bathrooms or a small storage facility, well, we're probably not going to request plans that include the safe room. But if it is a major reconstruction project, then we are going to. And we just want to be a little bit more specific on that, and we will be by the next reading.
Madam Chairman, there is a company in Oklahoma called All Technologies that does above ground safe rooms. I would encourage this board or our administration to get them on the agenda to do a presentation. I think that their technology is not cost prohibitive, and we have one for every site. If you look at their demonstration, they are an Oklahoma company that are out on 15th and Bryant. I've gone and looked at their presentation. I had the opportunity to visit with Representative Eccles, who will offer us $100,000 for the Stanway School in private donations. He asked me, I just happened to be by Stanway, see they're building a new gym. They're about halfway through their construction. And he requested that if I had one in the area. But there is a solution to, I think, our problem here in Oklahoma City. I think it's Oz Technologies. I'm not connected with them anyway. It's an engineer who, I think, Texas A&M spent 20 years and $20 million of federal funds to try to build an above-ground safe room, and they couldn't do it. And they found this guy. He was an engineer that solved this in 6 months. He was the one that was responsible for the tunnels through the Allegheny Mountains and solved that problem, and I think he solved an above ground. And there's a lot of reasons for an above ground safe room. A lot of reasons for it. And actually, these safe rooms, the presentation shows that they can be used for other uses besides just tornado safety. So I think this is something that we need to look at, not just in new construction. We're going to put it in our policies and procedures. There is a solution, and I don't think it's cost prohibitive, especially if we run a bond issue on this. As a matter of fact, I think if we tie this to a bond issue, we get the 60% that we need. I think grandparents who don't necessarily have students in the school anymore who vote in these bond elections will certainly support the Oklahoma City School District if we're putting safe rooms at every site. And go ahead.
I was just going to say that we could follow up and at our next meeting have.
Yes, and they build these custom fit on site, they're poured on site.
Okay,
and
the presentation is the next
absolutely,
meeting.
and they build it size to fit for the number of kids you need right there. And if this board is so inclined with that kind of contract, might get some sort of deal that's better. No one has this technology but Oz, and it's right here in the state. It's no Oklahoma County.
Thank you.
And another thing, as I talked about safe rooms, I know that we did up until I think maybe a couple of years ago, Rogers was used as a site that, we allowed our doors to be open for the public, to come in. And mostly, it's been kind of the practice, well, not the practice, the elements normally come, after our school days, so that's why I think we were caught off guard, with this other situation. But if there's some way that maybe we can work in conjunction with even some of the cities, because I know that we have our schools in District 5, we have schools in Midwest City, we have schools in Oklahoma City, and we have schools in the city of Spencer. And maybe even working together to see if they would be willing to do it as a kind of a dual site. And I don't know what the liability would hold in that situation, but, just a consideration for the cost.
Okay. Anything else? We're moving on to 1601, the Jefferson Middle School. Again, this is just, there's no action. This is for discussion. It's on the information agenda. And Terry, this is a change order on the roof. Why don't you come up, because you've got several of these coming up. Does anyone have any questions of Terry on 1601? 1602, the underground electrical easement. 1603.
I have a question in regard to fencing. Terry, in regard to these schools and fencing and the bids you're putting out, some of the fencing we have is very attractive. The black fencing at Grant and other schools, is that included in this, or are we just going with a straight?
You're talking about the Wilson, like Wilson and...
I'm talking about all, yes,
yeah,
Wilson.
Yeah.
Grant has it all around. It's very attractive, very nice, a little bit of class.
There's two types of fencing, two different classes of fencing allowed by our standards. One is the chain link fencing, but it's the black that you mentioned at Grant. It matches that, but may vary in height. And the other is the steel fence, and Wilson's a good example of that, or what we just put in at Star Spencer High School. Those are the two styles that will be used in all of our future fencing projects.
I personally like the black. It's very attractive. It looks nicer. Gives, especially when we've got a remodeled school, going to refence it. It just adds to it, in my opinion. Where are you with that? For those bids?
Well, the Star Spencer was our first project. We wanted to just test on one, but a large one. That's completed. So we have the next 5 proposed projects on our information agenda tonight. And pending board discussion tonight and approval in the future, those will be our next 5 projects.
For example, Webster, we've got a new fields and futures facility out there. I would like to see a nice fence go around that area. And add to it. And I don't think a standard chain link fence does that. But I do think the black, whatever that's called, I think it does.
Yes, sir. That's in fact why Webster is on this list. It really wasn't quite that high on our priority list, but we are recommending that we elevate it because we need to finish the fencing there that Fields and Futures started.
Okay. Jerry, we might for the next meeting bring a photo of each type of fencing. That just help us for those.
That would be helpful.
I've driven the district to look at fences. It makes you want to cry. Some of the fences that we have that are just rusty, worn up, bent over. So I don't know. I'm sure that this particular order is just for a few, but down the road, we really need to look at fencing in the areas in our schools. That just looks horrible. I know at Capitol Hill, I know we're going to redo that with Fields and Futures, but if you drive that street down through there and look at the fence, it just makes you want to cry.
And Terry, if we approve these 5 after understanding this a little better, are we proceeding to do the rest of the schools?
While these 5 would be under construction, we would be working with the next set of the prioritized list with the schools to design those and have them ready for your approval.
And how do you prioritize that list? How is that list prioritized?
A few years ago, there was we took a list of all the school sites, and from a safety, from an appearance, and then from just community visibility, those that have high traffic around them, gave them each a score and ranked them that way.
But we're eventually going to do them all.
That is the goal.
Okay.
I just for clarity's sake, I think it may take another bond issue to finish. These are very expensive projects.
Okay.
But when we do one, let's do it right. Let's make it look nice, and that's where I'm coming from, Terry. I want it to look nice, and these will be a good example to start with.
Yes, sir. In fact, these are selected because they again will go further to describing a style to make sure that we're comfortable when we start rolling this out across the district.
Good. Thank you. Okay.
I concur 100% in Ron's comments about the fencing. I mean, you really brand your schools with the fencing, and it's so visible. Now, as I understand your report, there are 2 kinds of fences that we are using. One is cyclone, but it's black vinyl. It's not the old silver wire.
That's correct.
And the other one is the narrow I guess they're square, but they're tubular.
Yes, sir.
Bars.
Examples would be the east side of Putnam Heights.
Yes. Well, the east side. No, there's on the south side.
Southeast corner, okay.
36th Street.
Yes, sir.
And I've always, now that's not my school, but I've always been troubled by the really good-looking fence that extends from the southeast corner of Putnam Heights down to about where the building is, and then that silver cyclone, unattractive, old, takes over. So now, this proposal includes Putnam Heights. What kind of fence are you going to put there on the south side? Is it going to match the metal, or is it going to be vinyl?
It is steel fence to match on the south side, starting from that southeast corner, going down to where the gymnasium expansion will be, and then wrapping around the ball fields in the back between the school and the private properties. That would be the black vinyl cyclone.
Okay, but the whole south side that faces 36 is metal, like the portion that's already exists.
I want to be sure. I'm going to look up that design.
Would you mind, Terry, just bringing us for our next meeting what these all look like on these schools, what you're proposing for these schools, and what the 2 different fences look like? And the cost, I mean, what kind of costs are different on those?
Sure.
Okay. Does that satisfy you?
Well, it is. And if, I'm going to wait 30 seconds if you can answer my question, otherwise I'll wait 2 weeks or a month.
It is steel fencing along the entire south face.
Great, great. Now here's my final thought about fences, and that is, this is something people can get excited about. They can get into it. And so we ought to look at donors, for upgrading the fences. Put the metal in instead of the vinyl if we can find some partners. I mean, we ought to be out looking.
Having been a fundraiser, I can tell you, to say that this board or the school district is responsible for doing that needs to be done at individual schools by the alumni associations, and I totally agree with you. But I don't think that's another task we can put on the district to do.
The district's already doing it.
They're not going out and fundraising and finding extra money. That's not their charge.
That would be a shock to a lot of people.
Okay. Dr. Kimball. Is he still here?
Yes.
Oh, hi. You want to come down, please?
You almost made it.
On 1604, the 8-blade servers, you want to tell us about that?
Those are HP, it was a bid, and they are basically to replace blade servers in the IT building that are out of warranty and old. And it's bond money that was the last of the 2007 bond money that we're using to pay for those.
Okay, so this is that designated money that goes to IT?
Correct.
Okay, and then 1605?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, doesn't that go against what we were just told earlier, though, about the IT?
No.
Okay.
No, they're separate, they're separate money.
Okay,
Okay.
What's 1605?
1605 is the prime vendor contract for data communication systems.
There was also a bid for, was it SKC?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. They do the cabling and stuff, and that is to ask for that spending authority so that as projects come up and cabling needs to be done in the schools, SKC got the bid to be our contractor to do that. So that money hadn't been spent, that is, as projects come up, it will draw from that money.
Any questions of Dr. Kimball? Thank you very much. Uh, 1701. This is on the academics.
And others may want to comment as well too from our man team. But this is in response to a request I made of Leon McLean to say, what is it we're lacking? Is there anything with the renewed emphasis that we have on OHI and that this board has emphasized and that we emphasized as teachers and as principals and teacher leaders went through their workshops last month, and this expenditure is what he thinks would help us further, and is frankly I was heartened that it was a rather modest sum, not small by 57,000 obviously, but still we think it supports the OHI emphasis that the board has asked us to pursue.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? 1702. Cindy?
In the last few meetings, we've brought some information to you about our Title I funding and how a portion of it goes to our private schools. This particular item is the same thing, except it's our Title II funds providing professional development. And the schools mentioned here in this item that shows a Caterpillar difficult to do the professional development for them. And that's what this particular item is addressing.
Any questions, Ms. Cindy, on this?
Do we use capital?
We use them just for the private schools. That we're working with. Capital money covers a portion where our students are enrolled in private schools. And we give them a portion of the funding for that, those
I guess
students.
this kind of goes back, and I'll get into this next week. What, if it's good enough for these private schools that are having success, how come we don't use capital? For our professional schools?
It's certainly be something that we can look at.
$1703, the ELL. And Justin, is that something that you want at the next meeting to know a little more about the Catapult program?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then this is the time to ask her, not, we know
Well,
you did.
I think that's going to, I would like to know for us, but I think under this, it's going to go to the private schools. But
I
yes,
understand,
agree.
but, yeah, okay.
Yes, bring us some information so, or maybe you can do some due diligence before that time so we can actually
Understand a little bit, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The ELL,
This particular item is asking for training on the SIOP method, which is Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. And what this item is asking for is for, again, job-embedded training. We have instructional facilitators with ELL, and the training would involve coaches going out and working with our instructional facilitators as well as teachers, doing some modeling for them, and giving them training that hopefully they'll be able then to sustain in the district.
any other questions on that? Thank you, Cindy. And Rod, Mr. McKinley, or Chief, is that one of those names? Could you come up and talk to us about 1704? This is the co-op between Northwest Classen and Dove Academy. Are you the proper person?
I'll take a stab at it while the chief is coming up. It's one that Dove Academy is really, Senator Park's not here. She's our primary interface with charter schools right now. But them just asking for use of our baseball field at Northwest Classen.
Yeah, again, David asking for what?
I'm sorry, not Classen. I'm sorry, I had it wrong. To participate on the Northwest Classen baseball team. Since the
Co-op, is that what you're asking for?
it's a co-op, yes, it's a co-op.
So the Dove
Their
students could...
can participate in baseball by playing at Northwest Classen.
So
Did I get that messed up, right?
isn't that a situation where they have to go up with all sports, or is that just with baseball?
I don't know, this request is strictly for baseball, so.
No, but if you go up in one sport,
Madam Chair, if I might point out, there is an attachment, has a form, and the activity is listed as baseball only for the 2013-14 year, and it would be for the Northwest Classen and the Dove Science Academy baseball teams to work collaboratively together as one team.
This is a...
My question for Aston Jay is whether they need to select all sports or just one.
well, you have, if I remember right, if you co-op, you don't have to co-op in all, but you can co-op in others. So, if you have co-op with Northwest Classen and which is fine, it's fine with me, I'm not opposed to it. It's just that if there's other co-op situations, like in softball, which I think you're restricted, so I just wouldn't.
We need our athletic director to advise us on this. I think Jay raises a good point, if you, are you barred? I'm not.
Yeah, my concern is that if...
I'm not through yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
If, I say you raise a good point, if you're barred from just doing one, you've got to do them all, I'd be surprised, but but we need to hear from our athletic director about that. This sort of cooperation has been going on when small schools didn't have enough to field a team in a sport, and they got permission from the state athletic association to for their kids to go play at a neighboring school. It's been going on for many years. It's a good program. The only thing I was ever aware of, I wasn't aware of Jay's concern, but I was aware of if you had enough, then I think they have to count the population of Dove in the population of Northwest Classen to determine if they're still in the same class, or do they bounce up, to a higher class. So that would be a matter for the athletic director to look at, seems to me.
That's absolutely the case. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you wanted to co-op with, say the girls softball team wanted to co-op with someone other than Dove, you would be prohibited from doing that, is my understanding. So just want to make sure if this is an all-inclusive situation for one team, you might find yourself restricted in other areas. So I just want this board to be aware that if you're locked into Dove, you're locked into Dove. And
Okay.
I would
We need an
ask
expert to help us.
I would ask to give the opportunity to go back and research further and give you a proper answer.
Good, and I think
I
if
can
you
see
could
a
do that.
situation where the softball coach might say, I want to co-op with another school other than Dove, and then be restricted from
Well,
that. So it's one of
we're not gonna speculate anymore. We're gonna let them come back at our next meeting. That's why we do the information agenda. This is great. If we can find out what does this do to us? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, board comments.
Just a question from down here in regard to Dave. What is the present total enrollment?
George is handy, and I think rather than me speculating, is George still out there?
That's 43,000.
45,000.
45.
Right.
Okay,
And when we say 45, that includes the charter schools, and about 41,000 without the charter schools.
I do have a comment.
Okay.
I want to comment on proactive going out into our community. They're doing the community meetings for the superintendent search. On last Monday, they did come out to Star Spencer High School, and we had approximately 12 people in attendance, and it was very engaging conversation on what it was that they wanted in a superintendent. And then the next day it was at Douglas, and so I went out to that one as well because I was really concerned as far as what my constituents were looking for as well in a superintendent. There were approximately 25 in attendance, and one of the observations that I made is that the majority of the audience were staff, and they were staff by principals, assistant principals, and teachers. That was pretty much the makeup of the audience. One of my observations, and I don't know, maybe they mentioned to you, is that I know that with Douglas, because we didn't have the need for an interpreter at the Star Spencer, but at Douglas, it really kind of shortened the time, and so I know we have one more with council. But what's her name? Yasmin, she was interpreting, and so it really took away a lot of the time and, shortened the time. So I do know that our district does offer, that interpretation where they have the headsets and that everything is happening at the same time. So anyway, I would encourage us to make sure we utilize the service that we do have here for that last one. And I know that it's supposed to be a southeastern, so that is going to probably be one that we really want to consider that. But I thought that the information that they were, well, not the information, but the requests, were very good, and the questions that are being asked. And I think that the community and even our principals, and it's my understanding even through Proactive, they are going to work with the principals and staff as well, to kind of get their information. But anyway, I think that from my observation, I think that our community really feels good about the fact of having their voices heard. So I believe that we're on the right track to making sure that we're inclusive when we're making these type of major decisions.
Well, and I hope that everyone knows and that it's been broadcast across the district that anyone may go online and fill out the survey, and it's bilingual survey, and it's available online for anyone who wants to have their voice heard. Comment? Let me just say, I've got two things. I want to talk about this book, The Other Westmore. This Westmore came to the Civic Center and spoke to, how many? 900 or 1,000 ninth graders. And this is about two men with the same name. One ended up as a Rhodes Scholar, the other ended up at 23 with a life imprisonment sentence with no possibility of parole. It just happened that they had the same name. And The Other Westmore, we've all been given a copy of this book. I think that this young man was inspiring for the students, and I want to thank the University of Oklahoma for bringing him in. It was a wonderful event, and it's the kind of thing that we need to expand our vision on when we talk about academics and careers and life experiences. These are life experiences that you can't get in a classroom. So I'm delighted to have the book, so thank you to whoever provided that for us. My other comment is on the Daily Oklahoman that we just received on Sunday, or I received on Sunday, 20 years of maps. And I think we have to really consider what that change and creating a brand new blueprint for Oklahoma City has done for this community, for this state. And I believe we have the opportunity today to do the same thing in education with this district of Oklahoma City and I-89. I think there's never been a better time for us to look forward and raise the expectations for this district. And it was inspiring to me to see what 20 years of high expectation has done for this city, and I think that another few years of high expectation in education can do the same thing. So is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second? All second? Call for the vote.
Having received 8 aye votes, 0 nay votes, motion carries as stated.